Let me find. Okay. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Looks good.
Okay, great. Okay, well, thanks, Lindsay and John, for inviting us. Again, Anthony Padavina, who you met, is one of my colleagues here on the call. Lockton Affinity loves working with Habitat affiliates. We have been the insurance administrator on the Habitat program since 2008. I don't know if you guys heard when we were first got on this call, John asked about the conference next week in Atlanta. So do just want to make sure to mention, I'm going to be there. We're going to have a booth. So if any questions come up today that you don't ask during the presentation or after the presentation, feel free to stop by the booth and ask me one-on-one. So I'm happy to stop and take questions during the presentation, but I will leave plenty of time at the end for question and answers too. I've asked Anthony to keep an eye on the chat. And if there's questions that come in through the chat and, there's a question at a point during the presentation that makes sense for me to take then, that'd be great for me to answer it then. Otherwise, I'll wait till the end. I know Lindsay sent me one question about solar panels, so I'll definitely take that question here too, either during the presentation or at the end. So I'm going to jump to the second slide here. So this slide just gives you a little bit of information about Lockton Affinity. I won't spend a lot of time on us, but we are a very large program administrator. We are a subsidiary of Lockton Companies, which is the largest privately held broker in the world. We've been putting together programs similar to this Habitat program since 1987. We have well over 100 different types of programs for all kinds of franchise groups, trade groups, associations. That's really what we do. We work with all of the large insurance companies. We work with a lot of regional companies. You'll see some of the sampling of carriers we work with, Chubb being one of our biggest partners, and they're the insurance carrier on this program. So Lockton Affinity's headquartered out of Kansas City. Most of our associates are in the Kansas City office. We're actually on the Kansas side in a suburb called Overland Park. So any of you guys that may call in and talk to somebody, whether it's a question about a claim or a service-related question or email, would get somebody on Anthony's team. My role is really to oversee the program as a whole. So I'll work with affiliates, I'll work with Habitat for Humanity International, I'll work with our insurance company, I'll work with all of our teams just to make sure the program runs as smoothly as possible. But really, what we look to do, the value that we try to bring to Habitat affiliates and why we look to put programs together is because, we think that with the large buying power of all of the affiliates that we can negotiate better coverages and better pricing and offer better service than, what an individual affiliate may be able to go out and find on their own. I mean, especially with what Habitat does, it's such a great mission. You guys do so much great work for your communities, but it's a really, really tough risk from an insurance standpoint. We have had a lot of claims and a lot of large claims, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go further into the presentation. But residential home construction is a really tough class of business and insurance. Building homes with volunteers makes it even worse. And then when you add in other complexities that are differing type of risks like restores, the various fundraising events, there's some different things that affiliates may do. And so it just makes for a challenging risk from an insurance standpoint. But by pooling it all together, it really makes for a great program, great insurance coverage and all for affiliates. So again, like I mentioned, that's all we do at Lockton Affinity is put programs together for groups like Habitat. We have restaurant programs, retail programs, professional programs for like eye doctors, dentists, and so on. So we do all kinds of stuff. We act as, you see there, we've got delegated underwriting authority. So we, as an administrator, we're not just the insurance broker, but we have a lot of the same functions as an insurance company. So we do all the quoting, all the policy issuance. We do all of the service work. The only thing we really don't do is pay the claims. So we're here to be a resource, but otherwise we have almost all the functions that both an insurance broker and a insurance company would have. And again, our goal is to focus on service and making the insurance experience as easy as possible for affiliates. We have probably, and I'm not kidding, 40 to 50 people in our office that touch a Habitat affiliate throughout the year. We've got a big IT technology department. And so we've got a website that we've built, which really our marketing team has been very involved in updating our website. It's something we're going to be announcing at the conference next week. And our new website's going to go live next week. So if you guys haven't been out to our website, we've got a ton of great resources out there. I'll touch on a lot of those resources in a later slide, so I won't go into that right now. But we email out the renewal, we email out applications. Our whole world has moved so much to technology. So, not only is the application done online, all of our documents are sent out via email, unless for some reason somebody doesn't want it via email. We have an online payment portal people can go out to pay off of. And so we're really focusing on technology and making things easy as possible for affiliates. We don't have our sales department involved in the Habitat program because we already have about 95% of the affiliates in the program. So really our goal is focused on all of the affiliates that are in the program. And that's where our customer service team comes in. And like I mentioned, Anthony is the team leader that sits over the account managers that would be answering your phone calls, your emails, and we've got a whole backroom team that supports our service team that you may talk to on the front line. They do all of the administration. There's the ones that issue all of the policy documents, certificates of insurance, auto ID cards, generate the invoices. So we really have a very large, robust operation. And before I came to Lockton Affinity, I actually was on the insurance company side and oversaw program managers like ourselves. And Lockton Affinity is very large. Most other program administrators focus on one class of business or one geographic area. And so, I think our size really helps us with clout in the insurance market, negotiate the best terms for our clients. We are always looking for better ways to do things. So we do get a lot of feedback from affiliates, so hopefully, you guys all enjoy working with us as much as we enjoy working with you. We do have an underwriting team also, so when we get, let's say, a large project in, there is a special application that has to be filled out for large projects, and that would be something that would go to our underwriting department to review. Or if affiliate calls us and tells us they want to do something that's a little outside the box, we'll have our underwriting department look at that and, make sure it's something that we can do and that it's not too much to really expose the Habitat program to. So our team, you might recognize some names on here. So again, I'm Shannon Wilson. I kind of sit over our team. Just make sure everything runs like it's supposed to. I mentioned we've got about 40 or 50 people in the office that touch the Habitat affiliates in one way or another throughout the year. But these are the people that you would most likely talk to if you call in or email. Anthony's the team lead. Sabrina Mendoza is a senior account manager. She's been on the Habitat program since 2008 when we first, brought in the program. Scott Hassick has been there 3 years now. He's a real good, personable guy. If any of you guys have talked to him, I'm sure you found him very helpful. Blake McKee is an account administrator that backs up Anthony, Sabrina, and Scott. And then, like I said, we've got a whole operations team that really backs them up as well. And then John Payne He is a claims manager and our loss control support person. So I work very closely with John, on larger claim related initiatives, loss control initiatives, but he also works one-on-one individually with affiliates on claim related issues or questions or loss control and safety. Just a little bit more general information about Lockton Affinity. I've already mentioned some of this stuff, but Chubb's our insurance carrier. Our renewal is April 1st of every year. So we've been very busy working on the habitat renewal. Our renewal process really starts with affiliates, and believe it or not, around September, we're looking at any changes we want to make to our renewal application or process. We start trying to get the auto and work comp applications in October and November. Our application for all of our main master lines of coverage, which we'll get to in a minute, we send out right after Thanksgiving every year. So it's right around the 1st of December. Try to get those completed and back before affiliates shut down for the holidays. Any that we don't get, we're following up with in early January. And then it's really late January, early February that we're looking at all the exposures that affiliates reported, figuring out based on, the loss experience and so forth and our negotiations with the carrier, what we need to do from a pricing standpoint. And then right now we're putting the finishing touches on our renewal automation, which is going to be sent out to affiliates this week. So affiliates should be looking for their renewal in their email box this week. And again, happy to answer any questions people might have next week at the conference or, inquire with our team. I'd mentioned we have 95% of the affiliates and SSOs in our program. We've got 25 in the program from Oregon. Habitat affiliates have insurance requirements that are from HFHI. Our program encompasses all of those insurance requirements. And then we offer, several other things that affiliates may just want to buy, like cyber. Cyber's been really something big that's come up over the past few years. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit too. There are things that affiliates, and I'm probably going to say this a couple times throughout the presentation because it's very important and I really want to make sure you hear. But there are times midterm when you need to proactively contact us. If you buy or acquire a new property that you want scheduled under your property policy, or you buy or acquire a vehicle, those types of exposures are not automatically covered. You have to call us in order for that to be covered under the policy. Or if you're doing certain fundraising events, like a bike event or a event where you're going to have to pull a liquor license and host an event where you're serving alcohol, we may need to get you a separate special event policy. So you'd need to call us about something like that. Or really anytime your affiliate's doing anything that you think might be a little unique to your affiliate, you should contact us just to make sure there's nothing special we need to do or to let you know that that's maybe something we can't cover through the program. And then large projects, any affiliates that are doing large projects, which I'll talk about that in a minute, you would need to let us know during the year about those too. So as far as our insurance coverages go, we've got a property policy that includes crime coverage on it as well. But that property policy is what covers like the restore building itself, any content that's inside that restore. If they want to cover inventory, we can cover inventory. It covers offices, warehouse. If affiliates have some tenant occupied dwellings, maybe I know there's some affiliates that may have a program where when a homeowner takes the property over, they want them to live in it like a tenant for a year before they actually buy it themselves and get their own insurance on it and so forth. Or maybe they just don't have their insurance arranged yet, or there's some things you might be finishing up and they move in. If it needs to be insured under your property policy, you need to let us know, because once construction is completed, there's no more coverage under the builder's risk. You have to tell us to schedule on the property for that to be covered. There's also times affiliates get donated a vacant building. Maybe they haven't started the rehab work on it yet. If you want that covered under insurance before you start construction, you need to contact us. We send out a list every year of what we currently show is covered under your policy. And so you all will need to tell us every year if there's something that needs to be added or taken off, or maybe you've done something to a property and it's worth a lot more money now and it would cost a lot more to replace it, then you'd want to tell us about that too. But again, I mentioned it covers the building, contents, inventory. It will cover equipment, tools, computers. There are some sublimits for some of those, like maybe 25,000 on equipment. And so if you've got a piece of equipment valued at maybe 50 or 100,000, that's something you'd want to tell us about. Business interruption coverage is if you're shut down for a period of time and there's extra expense. Maybe you have to move to another office temporarily. Or again, I know this is a construction group, but restores, if a restore burned to the ground, you'd be losing out some income. So there's some situations where you guys want to call us in and have a higher limit there. The deductible's $5,000, and in some of our more higher hazard wind hail areas around the coast, particularly Florida, you may have a 5% deductible for wind or hail, and that's 5% of the value of that property. Again, our main crime coverage is theft, which has a $100,000 limit. That's, like employee dishonesty. But there are other crime coverages on the policy as well, and higher limits we can offer. Builder's risk, again, that covers any properties under construction. So that would be new builds, rehabs, multifamily new, or rehab or non-residential. And those properties are covered under a builder's risk from the time the construction starts till the time the construction ends. So again, if you still have that property once construction ends, or you have it for a while before it starts, if you want coverage on that, you need to tell us. The large project questionnaire I mentioned, any projects where you're expecting the completed value to be over $1.5 million, or there's 10 or more units or buildings, commercial buildings, or 15 or more single family homes, like in a subdivision, a single family rehab with a completed value over 600,000. Those are all the types of things that are larger, more high risk, that our underwriting department really needs to take a look at. And we may even have to send it to the insurance company to look at before we can cover it. So you or your office manager, whoever, needs to understand that so that you contact us at the appropriate times. General liability. This policy is intended to protect your affiliate for any property or bodily injury type claims, property damage or bodily injury. So I've got several claim examples we'll go over later, so I can explain in a little more detail what that means. But really, we see a lot of claims under general liability, and I've got to commend the construction group and the safety and loss control that's gone on for several years now. Our construction losses under general liability are shockingly great. They really are. And so good job to all of you from a safety and, loss control standpoint. But I'll also tell you that when there is a construction-related general liability claim, they're our largest claims. We've seen multi-million-dollar claims, and people get severely injured or killed. And so anyway, it's when we have a construction claim, it's very, very serious. And so we just need everybody to keep doing everything you can so that volunteers don't get hurt, your employees don't get hurt, third parties coming into restores or potentially in your office to sign a waiver. We've got something called hired non-owned auto liability on the general liability. It's kind of unique for that coverage to be on the general liability policy. Typically, you'd see that on an auto policy, but not all affiliates have auto coverage, and we want all affiliates to have that coverage. In fact, we had $1 million claim in the last year or two from a restore manager who actually was he was on the way back from making a bank deposit and crossed the center line and hit two other cars in oncoming traffic, and people were severely hurt. That turned out to be over $1 million claim. So if they're driving their own car, or, let's say you're coming into the Habitat conference next week and you're renting a car, that hired is renting the car. Non-owned means maybe you're driving your own car, or maybe a volunteer's driving on affiliate business, or one of your employees is driving their own car on affiliate business. If they get in an accident, even though you don't have that car scheduled on your auto policy, or you may not even have an auto policy, that's what that coverage protects your affiliate from. So it's a really important coverage. Employee benefit liability is something that's kind of thrown in on most general liability policies. I really never see any claims from that, so I won't elaborate on that. We recently added a sublimit for abuse and molestation on the general liability policy. Knock on wood, I'm not really aware of us having any claims from that exposure, but that exposure exists to some degree, and we were able to get the insurance company to add that for not much additional money, so we thought it was a good thing to do. Umbrella coverage, it's an extra $1 million that Habitat requires affiliates to carry, and it sits over your general liability policy. And again, like I said, we've had several multi-million-dollar claims. And so unfortunately, we call our umbrella a working layer, which most of the time umbrellas are just kind of there in case. But we've actually had our umbrella used a fair number of times. So that's if it's a really serious accident or injury. Somebody may sue your affiliate for a couple of $1 million or even more than that. And so we actually have excess policies that affiliates can buy above that umbrella. If you have your auto and your workers' comp and employer's liability with us, our umbrella also sits over the auto and work comp, which there's an employer's liability component of the work comp. But anyway, we can go up to an additional $5 million above that. Management liability, this is called a lot of different things. This is, if you've heard of directors and officers liability, I know a lot of the, board members would want to make sure that there's a directors and officers policy in place. All affiliates are required to carry this coverage. Our primary policy has a $2 million limit for a combination of directors and officers liability, employment practices liability, and then $100,000 for fiduciary liability. Again, I never see fiduciary liability claims, so I'm not going to talk about that much. And fortunately, we really don't see many directors and officers liability claims. There are some, but really under this policy, we see lots of employment practices liability claims. And it's not just Habitat affiliates, it's something that has been growing and growing every year. And I'll give you a couple of examples of those type of claims later on too. But the most important thing to note about this policy and these coverages is that this is what we call a claims made policy. And so the claim has to be made during the policy term or within, usually it's about 30 days after the policy expires. Some will extend it 60, some maybe 90. But if you don't continue that policy, and you have a claim that gets made after you cancel that policy, it's not going to be covered, even if the accusation occurred when you had the policy in place. So it's really, really important that if you become aware of any situation that could be a director's and officer's liability or an employment practices liability claim, that you contact us right away so we can put the insurance company on notice, or you can contact them to put them on notice. And that would be like an employee claiming wrongful termination or discrimination, sexual harassment, those types of employment-related claims against your affiliate. Or a director's and officer's claim, the most common we see there is like a breach of contract. If somebody came and was bringing that either against your affiliate or any of the directors and officers. We just have a few more claim or coverages that I'm going to go over, and then I'm going to jump into a few other things here. But in addition to the excess that I mentioned that sits over the umbrella policy, we also have an excess directors and officers and employment practices liability policy. We have a growing number of affiliates that keep buying that. That extra $1 million is not required from HFHI right now, but a lot of affiliates buy it. We can also write an individual excess above those coverages up to $5 million also. And then we have a volunteer accident medical and a volunteer accident or volunteer disability policy. These two coverages used to be used a lot more. There's a cap that was put on, Medicare or Medicaid eligible volunteers. And so, having the 250,000 limit for most volunteers and then that 10,000 cap or the 50,000 cap has really limited the claims we see under that policy. Also, as you guys know, you have all your volunteers sign waivers and you don't tell them there's any other insurance that might come into play. But this policy is here, and really what it's designed to do is if somebody gets hurt but not very bad and they don't have any other primary medical insurance, this policy could pay, for their hospital visit, and that would prevent that volunteer from having to bring a lawsuit against your affiliate to get the medical bill paid. And we find that just doing it that way without having a lawsuit come into play keeps the claim dollars much, much smaller. A couple of individual policies I mentioned before, not all affiliates have an individual auto policy. But again, if you have any owned autos, you need that policy. And, that's something that we can offer to affiliates. And the great thing about having it with us is our umbrella sits over that at no additional cost. Same thing with the workers' comp and employers' liability. If you have your workers' comp with us, we'll sit over our umbrella will sit over that policy as well. Again, workers' comp is to protect your affiliate in the event any employees get injured on the job. The last few coverages I'm going to talk about, which really aren't quote unquote part of our program, but they are. They're routine coverages that we can get for your affiliate. We may just have to go out to other insurance companies, or these policies may be structured a little bit different from policy to policy, rather than everything being designed specifically for a Habitat affiliate. Again, if you're doing certain fundraising events, like I mentioned before, we've got a list on our website of the types of things that are included under the general liability and you don't need a special event, and then the types of things where you do need a special event policy. Hopefully you have heard us talking about cyber to you. In fact, I don't know if any of you are sitting in a cyber breakout session at the conference next week, but I'm going to be in a session along with John from HFHI's IT department. His last name's escaping me right now. Oh, John Bennett. So if you know John Bennett, or if you don't know John Bennett, maybe you want to meet John Bennett. And then we've got a guy from Chubb that are going to be talking about cyber. They're going to be talking about the risks that affiliates face, what affiliates need to do to protect themselves from being a target for cyber criminals to try to hack into your systems, things that make an affiliate insurable or uninsurable, how, affiliates insurance coverage is priced for cyber, and then just some of the things that affiliates can do to better protect themselves. So I think it's going to be a really good session. We've got about 200 affiliates that are buying cyber policies right now. It's something that we highly recommend affiliates do. I don't know if any of you were involved in that Blackbaud situation a few years ago, but we had 60, maybe 70 affiliates that had a potential issue that, again, claim experts will help walk your affiliate through what they may need to do when a cyber incident happens. Environmental or pollution policies, we don't write hardly any of those policies either, but those are exposures affiliates may have and may want to get a quote for. There's no flood coverage under our property policy. If you're in a flood zone or want flood coverage, that's something separate we could get for you. Same thing with earthquake coverage. And then the only other thing I want to mention on this slide is waivers. You all know that waivers are required for volunteers to sign, and both we and Habitat for Humanity International, strongly recommend / require that all regular volunteers sign waivers at least annually. So I'm going to stop there for a minute, Anthony. Are there any questions that have come in the chat?
No, there's no questions right now in the chat.
Okay. I'll go ahead and answer just to kind of break up this presentation so I don't save everything to the end. And in case anybody was falling asleep, hopefully maybe you woke back up. But the one question that I did get in advance of this call, I don't have the question right in front of me, but it was regarding solar panels. And it sounded like that affiliate was entering into some agreement or partnership or was going to be required to start putting solar panels on, all the new homes that they either build or rehab. And this has been a topic of conversation. In fact, we recently wrote a blog article and it's on our website. We've attached some things that we got from Chubb. Solar seems to be a big topic, and it sounds like Habitat could be getting a big grant maybe and this, is obviously a good thing that more and more affiliates may be doing. So to answer the question, your general liability policy is a very broad policy, meaning that unless something is specifically excluded in the policy, really any operations that your affiliate is doing is going to be covered under that policy. And solar panels, installing solar panels would be something that, we would just include under the policy. As this grows, it might be something we start asking about on our renewal application. It may be something that we need to start allocating a charge for if we start to see this more widely, and especially if we start to see more claims from it. I mean, obviously there is a risk for affiliates to, get up on the roof and install these. There's, also a risk if they get installed improperly and then they do damage to somebody's home. So there are definite risks with it. At this point, we're not charging for it. There's no exclusion, so it would be covered. But on the property side of the solar panels, that is not something that's automatically covered under the policy. In fact, that is really not something that we think should or that we really want to cover under our property policy, because we kind of view solar panels like, if you lease a vehicle, whoever you're leasing the vehicle from doesn't provide the auto insurance on that vehicle. We think affiliates need to have a contract with whoever is getting the solar panels installed. And, as part of their homeowner's insurance, they should be covering any property damage to those solar panels. So that's one reason. But then secondly, these solar panels themselves, aren't really highly valued items each. and like I'd previously mentioned, the deductible's 5,000 on our property policy. For us to cover the solar panels, we'd either need to add a sublimit for that at no additional charge on our policy, or we'd need to keep track of every single affiliate and what homes they have out there that have these solar panels that we need to be covering. So from a property standpoint, at this point, we're not looking to cover them under our policy, but from a liability standpoint, which is really the much bigger and riskier piece, because that involves bodily injury and property damage, that's where we have it covered, or do have it covered as we speak on our policy. Is there anything else about solar panels that anybody wants to ask, or did I answer that question for you?
Yeah, that seems like you answered it. Yeah, we've been working with a solar company who provides the materials and the design, and then we do the physical install. And so our county, and we've done about 11 of them in the last 3 years. And the county inspector was curious who was liable for the work done. And so he wanted to know if we were covered with our insurance policy.
Yes.
So that was a great answer. I appreciate it.
Okay, good, good. Okay,
Hey,
so
Shannon, we did have a
yes,
couple questions come in.
okay,
So we had one, they wanted to ask about an OSIP policy, a RAP policy. They
okay,
want to talk about that. And then another one about the last slide. They want you to define the coverage from the last slide. Is that acts of God type of thing? So the environment under other exposures.
okay, environmental acts, okay.
Mhm.
So why don't I take the second one first, the acts of God one? I'm not really clear on what that question is. Are they, can you
Yeah.
read it again, Anthony?
Yeah. So can you define the environmental coverage from the last slide? They want to know what it is. The
Oh,
pollution.
okay. Yeah. So environmental is any pollution related exposure. Let's say that your affiliate, again, let's use a restore for example, and then I'll use a construction example. But let's say that your restore is dumping something, in the back of their property, and it contaminates some pond that somehow hurts somebody else, whether it's their property, whether it's bodily injury, or even on a refrigerator leaks and leaks refrigerant somewhere, or on your construction site. Let's say you guys are doing something and there's a underground storage tank and there's a environmental gas leak, or an underground storage tank actually is a specific separate kind of pollution environmental policy. So for an underground storage tank, there's a specific policy for that. But there are a lot of different unique environmental situations where an affiliate could, leak pollution of some sort that is specifically excluded under the general liability policy. And if somebody sues you for that, then your affiliate is going to have no coverage to defend themselves or potentially pay out any, any lawsuit that you may lose. And so that's why, several years ago, Habitat was very worried about this exposure and really felt like it was something that Habitat affiliates needed to have. We promoted it, Habitat promoted it. We offered the quotes several times to affiliates. Nobody really bought it. I think maybe there's been a couple of affiliates in the past who've been required to cover it or provide the coverage. Somebody they partnered with required it, and that's when we sold it. These pollution policies are a little bit more expensive, and when I say a little bit more expensive, I'm talking like they're not going to probably be $1,000 or even $2,000. They're probably going to be, depending on the size of your affiliate and what all your affiliate's doing, maybe more like five, or could be even $7 or $8 or $10,000. And so unless somebody's requiring affiliates to cover it, and knock on wood, we really haven't had pollution or environmental claims in our program, but it is something that contractors are exposed to. And your affiliate could be, and you don't have coverage for that. So we just want to make sure you know that. Now the OSIP policy, that is not something that we offer through our program either. In case people don't know what an OSIP policy is, it is something that is talked about a lot in the construction arena, and it's a policy that covers like the general contractor and the subcontractors that are all participating in, a certain type of build or construction project, and it wraps up really the general liability and the work comp exposures and covers everybody that's involved in that project. That's not something that we do. We're looking to specifically cover the affiliate's interests. And we're not looking to pick up exposures for, other entities that are outside of the Habitat program. And so, if your affiliate is asked to be part of an OSIP, I mean, that may be a project that you would cover under the OSIP, and it would be something that we would need to specifically exclude, and it would be outside of our program. I'll give you, well, I was about to name an affiliate, but I probably won't name them. We have a very large affiliate that's in a tough area of the country. And, oftentimes in that geographic area, an OSIP is something that a lot of contractors in that area do. And so a lot of their projects are and have been excluded under our policy and are covered under OSIPs. It doesn't happen very much. A lot of the affiliates aren't, well, anyway, it comes up now and then, but most affiliate exposures are covered under our program and not through an OSIP. But you can do that when the situation arises as need be. And again, it's not something we would do. It would be something you'd get with somebody locally. Any other questions come in, Anthony?
Yeah, there's one more, and this actually would tie in with next couple slides of claims. What liability exposure could apply to a competent person should an injury occur at a job site?
Okay.
It would fit well with the reporting.
Yeah, so but I'll go ahead and answer it now though, but the competent person training, again, I'm sorry, was it if the competent person injured someone?
Applied to a competent person should an injury occur at a job site.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, employees of the affiliate are going to be protected under, the affiliate's liability policy. We think competent person training is great. We love the fact that Habitat invested heavily in that. That's probably one reason why the construction job sites are so safe. Again, I just really commend all you guys and ladies for all the great job that you've been doing. But our general liability is going to protect your affiliate, for claims that may arise, from your operations, whether it's a job site, a fundraising event, a restore. If somebody accidentally did something that caused the injury, or it was just an accident that happened. I mean, we're having many claims for a whole variety of reasons. I mean, let's say on the job site, the competent person, left stuff laying around and somebody tripped over that and, broke their neck and became a quadriplegic. And they blamed the competent person for not having a more neat and orderly, job site. Or, we've had, unfortunately, several claims where there's unprotected openings. Let's say a stairwell going down to a basement, or from a second story down to the first story, or window openings, and people fall out of them or fall through the openings and get severely injured. And, I mean, obviously that's an accident that should not happen. Those types of openings need to be, secured. I mean, you need to have it covered. You need to have such great warning signs that nobody could miss that there's an opening there. And so again, it could be a lawsuit that gets brought against the affiliate. It could get brought against, an employee and the volunteer and the competent person. And, our general liability is there to protect the affiliate and, those related to it for, lawsuits that surface. Hopefully that answered that question.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
This is Vic Salva in Oregon. Lincoln County.
Hello.
Hi, this kind of dovetails into the solar panel Q&A. Do you guys offer a service? Well, let me say this at first. Oregon licensing for contractors are required to do continuing education to keep their license. And I took a class once that had to do with insurance. And I've learned that when you ask for a certificate of liability from a subcontractor, their policy may or may not cover some details within the scope of what they're going to do. And if it doesn't cover completely within that scope, and it's not obvious to us that if there is a problem or an accident, that liability can trickle up to the owner or, to Habitat. Do you guys
Yes.
offer a service that might we suspect or we really wanted to interpret exactly what the policy says, and if it fits in the scope, do you offer a service to look at that policy?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great question. And I want to actually make a comment first, and then I'll answer your question. But you're 100% right. That's great that you guys get certificates of insurance. That's great that you understand that a certificate is really just evidencing some basic facts. I mean, usually it's telling you who the insurance company is, what their effective and expiration date is, what their limits is, and then just very at a high level what their coverage is. And there are some things that may not be covered under the general liability policy, and you'd actually have to read the general liability policy to know if there's a specific type of exclusion on there. So even services, I mean, services that we might offer, or a lot of services that are out there, are going to check for some certain things on a certificate. Again, they're going to be looking to make sure that the dates are in force. There may be some kind of a minimum requirement on, the size and the security of an insurance company that's issuing that policy. They may look for limits like it's got to be $1 million occurrence, a $2 million aggregate. It's making sure it's got bodily injury, property damage, products completed operations. It may be looking for some medical pay. There's some basic things that certificate tracking companies or even we might look for, but it isn't going to be able to delve in and understand completely all the coverages that each subcontractor has and the exclusions that it might have on that policy. So I'm not aware of anybody that has a service that would be able to review every subcontractor's policy to make sure that there isn't something in their policy, whether it's omitted or was added by exclusion, that reduces coverage that your affiliate would really want them to have.
And let me jump in. There's one thing you could do in your contracts when you're writing them for the subcontractors.
Anthony, you read my mind.
Yeah.
You're exactly.
You can put in specific things you might think be excluded on that policy and that contract for them to see it and know about it. So they can go to their insurance company, say, hey, do I have this coverage available? Because we see it all the time from the third party people you guys send to us. You guys can do it to your third party individuals as well.
Because sometimes what I've learned is sometimes those not knowing the exclusion it could be a game changer. I mean, you can be held. It can be very expensive mistake, not knowing.
Yeah, and I mean, again, Anthony's exactly right about listing out the things that you're most concerned about. And Habitat for Humanity International, I believe they have some sample contracts that they've recommended in the past that you guys use as far as This slide that I'm on right now, which talks about certificates, contracts, and indemnification language. But like Anthony just said, I mean, having contract language that tries to spell out the insurance that you're requiring them to carry, again, that language will help you in the event, let's say they don't have the coverage, or there is something in their policy that excludes it. I mean, it's still going to become an issue because it's going to be a battle between their insurance company and your insurance company and your lawyers and theirs. And your affiliate, you're right, can be exposed. I mean, there's some techniques and some things you can do to try to protect your affiliate. You know, it's almost impossible to do everything, to be certain that nothing ever comes back to your affiliate. But there are a number of things that you can do to try to minimize the exposures or risks of your affiliate. And so, you know, getting certificates of insurance, trying to look for the key main coverages, trying to have contracts that outline the key main things that you want them to have, you know, having them name you as an additional insured on their policy, or even putting a waiver of subrogation in place, having them hold you harmless. I mean, those are all legal things that you can try to do to try to minimize your exposure. You know, I don't think that there's anything, like I said, that you can do that can 100% protect your affiliate, but trying to have all those tools and techniques in place is going to, again, short of reviewing every subcontractor's policy, which I don't know that that's really a feasible thing to do, and I don't know a service that does that. You know, but again, I think if you're doing the basic things we have listed here that we've talked about, you know, you're going to go a long way in the right direction to preventing that. Okay, I'm going to move on, unless there's anything else we want to talk about on that, or Anthony, have there been any other questions that have come in?
Nope, no other questions right now.
Okay, so it seems like I skipped a couple slides. I did here. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Yeah. Okay, so claim reporting examples. Again, this is my favorite slide. So again, if everybody is dozing off at all, or anybody's dozing off, I think claim examples are the best way for you to understand the types of claims that other affiliates are having. You know, again, we rarely have affiliates that have claim after claim after claim. You know, somebody may not have a claim, and then it's 3 years later before they have another claim, or maybe they've never had a claim before, and they're scrambling to figure out when an accident happens, whether a volunteer gets hurt on a job site, or an employee gets hurt on a job site, or there's an auto accident, or there is an employment practices liability claim that's brought against your affiliate, or there's a fire at your affiliate, or a tornado, or, you know, you're in a hurricane prone area, and it's hurricane season, and there's imminently a hurricane headed your way. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen to affiliates, and we've got a lot of claims in our program. And we've had this program for a number of years. But I'd say the top property claims that we see are due to fires. It could be an explosion that happens. It could be faulty wiring that happens. It could be arson that happens. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can cause a fire. So, you know, fire safety at your warehouses, at your offices, at your restores, you know, is something really important for your affiliate to pay attention to. We've also had a lot of water damage claims from a pipe bursting or leaking. You know, there's a lot of weather related things that happened, you know, like I mentioned, hurricanes, but hail damage is really bad in the Midwest and in other areas, whether it's on cars or properties or what have you. Crime, employee dishonesty claims. I mean, we've seen claims where, you know, an employee who, you know, is the payroll person or signs checks has been, you know, maybe an employee leaves the operation, but they keep writing paychecks to that employee and depositing them in their own account. So, you know, you really need to have some good crime-related practices, whether it's at the restore or at the affiliate or related to the job site or with donors, so that, you know, you don't make it very easy for employees to be able to steal. Builder's risk, again, knock on wood, we have really great loss experience on the builder's risks. It's not very often we have homes or buildings under construction that get damaged or destroyed, or that get damaged or destroyed where it turns out to be a big dollar amount item. So I think we've been very fortunate there, or you guys do a great job of securing things or building them fast so that they get up before you know, something damages them. We do have theft of tools and materials, you know, available under that policy. Like I said, both under the property and the builder's risk, we've got equipment and tool coverage. General liability. Again, our biggest policies are our property, general liability, and work comp. That's where we have the largest claims and auto. That's where we have the largest claims. That's where we have the most claims. But again, we have volunteers who fall off roofs and maybe fall on somebody else on the ground and hurt them at the same time. You know, when they get hurt, even though they signed a waiver, the affiliate's still going to get sued, and, you know, potentially there could still be a big payout. You know, third parties, whether it's a subcontractor, I mean, if a subcontractor had low limits of insurance or no insurance, and their employee got hurt, you know, they would sue you, and you know, you'd potentially have to pay for that injured party, or, you know, that injured party work. There's a lot of slips and falls, and we get a lot of issues in parking lots and on walkways. You know, when somebody's either entering an office or entering a restore, or, you know, even at a job site. Again, umbrella is, like I mentioned, it's a policy that sits over the general liability and potentially the auto and the work comp if you have it with us. That is just going to kick in if your, you know, primary policy limits get exhausted. I'd mentioned the auto and the hired non-owned auto. So I've already given an auto and a hired non-owned auto example, but, you know, any of the construction vans or pickups or the box truck, you know, for a restore, or, you know, somebody driving on affiliate company business, those are all auto or hired non-owned auto related claims. We used to have great auto experience, and, you know, probably over the past 5 to 10 years, we're seeing a lot more. In fact, in a lot of our programs, or even just, you know, insurance in general, auto rates are going up tremendously because there's just auto accidents all over. And, you know, cars are getting more expensive to fix. Parts are harder to find, especially on older cars. You know, people getting hurt, you know, all the medical expenses are going up. We all know that. People just don't pay as much attention. They're on their cell phones, or people are in a hurry. So auto is definitely something to pay attention to. Workers' comp, you know, again, that's employees getting hurt on the job, whether, you know, it's a fall at a job site, you know, they are lifting something and hurt a back or a shoulder or a knee, trips and falls, like I'd mentioned before. Directors and officers liability, like I said, it's typically breach of contract or mismanagement of funds. Unfortunately, there have been some executive directors that have done some not so great things. Most of them are great, though. You know, it just takes one person. It's too bad. Employment practices liability, we are seeing a lot of those claims. You know, again, I mentioned it's discrimination. Somebody may sue your affiliate and say you didn't hire them because they were too old, or, you know, maybe it was female that you didn't hire and you were looking for a male. Or somebody says that you terminated them, you know, maybe she was pregnant and they thought they got wrongfully terminated and that's why you terminated them. Or, you know, maybe it was race or religion that they're claiming why you terminated them. Or, you know, harassment, whether it's sexual harassment or other harassment, or that you end up firing them because you're retaliating against them for something else. And then, you know, like I said, special events, there could be a liquor event. I mean, maybe you're serving liquor and, you know, somebody leaves that event and they're drunk. Maybe they were even underage and hit and kills some people. And, you know, your affiliate's going to get sued. And so that's why you want to make sure you've got a liquor liability policy if you're doing something like that. We also had a multi-million-dollar bike event accident several years ago. It was a promising, he either went to Harvard or Yale, and it was across the country biking event. He signed the waiver. He was actually in Kansas in the middle of the country. Everybody saw him turn into oncoming traffic. It was his fault. He got severely injured. He was paralyzed from the neck down. He had to blink to be able to communicate with people. And, you know, this claim went on for quite a while, and they were very afraid to put his sympathetic family and him in front of a judge. And I mean, that claim paid out millions of dollars. And so things that you think wouldn't happen can end up, you know, being a huge thing. So let's see, just got a couple more slides here, and then I'll see if there's any other questions. Safety and loss prevention. I mentioned, I believe, that we've got a new website that we're rolling out next week. We've got a lot of claim reporting information out there, safety and loss prevention. We have online safety training courses that affiliates can take, their employees, their volunteers. We have some habitat specific ones, and then a lot of just general construction safety, ladder safety, you know, that sort of thing. We do webinars periodically. If there's something like today that you guys want us to do a webinar on a particular topic, we've done one on cyber. We've done, you know, several different ones. We can do that. We can do breakout sessions at the state conferences or, you know, the national conference. We write safety articles and blogs on various pertinent topics. There's safety checklists, you know, like a daily inspection, a monthly inspection, an annual inspection checklist we've got on our website. EPL Assist, if you need some support, if you're getting ready, let's say, to fire somebody, you want to make sure you've got all your ducks in a row, you can contact EPL Assist. They can make sure that you're following proper protocol. We installed Nurse Line with workers' comp to try to help injured employees get assistance right away to bring down the overall work comp claim cost, to hopefully, you know, bring down costs overall for you all. If you want an on-site visit, our insurance company Chubb partners with Zero Accident. They're a third party that can come out and, you know, we'll do assessment at your job sites, or, you know, a rehab or the restore, or your office, and just, you know, help you make sure that, you know, you got all the safety training protocols and, you know, things in place that you should have. Let's see, HFHI has a website, you know, My Habitat. They've got a lot of great resources, handbooks, guides, manuals out there. And then, you know, we've got people, whether it's our account managers, whether it's John Payne, that can help talk you through any safety or loss control concern you might have, or if you're looking for, you know, any techniques, tips, tools, give us a call. Our goal, as I'm sure your goals are, is to keep everybody safe. We don't want anybody getting hurt. We don't want Habitat to have a bad reputation. We don't want, you know, you to lose an employee for months while they're getting better, or We think training is really critical, and that the managers at every habitat level are stressing the importance of safety. It's everybody's job to be looking and making sure that everything's safe, utilizing fall protection where you can. Know what the top exposures are and look at those, so that you can prevent accidents from happening or injuries from occurring. Again, we talked about the contract language. Do all you can with your contractors to protect yourself. Because again, the less that we have to pay out or the insurance company has to pay out in claims, the better we can negotiate your rates and insurance premiums to be as low as possible. Just the last few things here, and then I'll see if there's any further questions. We do have an insurance manual on our website that is, I don't know how many pages, more than 50, probably 80, maybe even 100, that's got, explains all your insurance coverages, when to contact us, all in easy to read layman's terms. So you might review that if you're interested. If you need certificates of insurance, you can request those on our website. We've got applications. Let's say you don't have an auto policy, but you buy an auto. You can fill out an auto application. If you want a cyber quote, you can fill out an application there. We have the insurance requirements that HFHI, we have that out there. We've got all kinds of guides, checklists, again, claim reporting information, other safety and loss control information. Chubb has a wealth of safety and loss control information on their website. Habitat does as well. I got a couple of those things listed there at the bottom. So with that, are there any other questions? This last slide is our contact information. Hopefully you guys all have it. If you want Anthony or I, but really mostly you're going to work with Anthony's team back at our office. But I think we have about 10 minutes left. Do we have any other questions in the chat, Anthony?
Yeah, John sent one about what's the deductible for theft or damage on job sites. He asked if it's still $5K. I can answer it. So it is $5K for residential builds, but if you're doing a commercial build, say you're adding on to a restore, it's going to be $10,000 deductible for that type of build.
Okay, good to know, because that's something we're dealing with constantly. So just to know where that threshold is, whether we eat it or whether we file an actual claim.
Yeah. Okay. And that was the only question about the coverage that was in the chat.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? Was there anything else you guys were hoping to hear about today that we didn't go through?
One of my biggest questions and concerns, and I've gotten a lot of information just through predecessors and Restore and just word of mouth, but is really dealing with volunteers. And I guess referring to our policy would have some of those details. Yeah, thank you for putting that back up. And it's just to know where the boundaries are. Basic things. I know over 18 on the job site if we have power tools going. 16 if there's no tools. Also, I don't know if this is policy information or just the best practices, but we don't put volunteers above 8 feet or open second stories. We save that for subs and employees. So just things like that, like those details we can find on the website.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you that most of those requirements or guidance comes from Habitat for Humanity International. And so I think a lot of the Habitat for Humanity International handbooks, and I don't remember what they call it. I know they've got a number of different things, resources out there for you guys to look at along those lines. We don't really have stuff like that in our policy that excludes somebody if they're under 18 or under 16, or if they're on a ladder more than 8 feet and they weren't supposed to be. Just so you guys know, We don't have things like that in our policy. That's what we would call more as underwriting guidelines. Those would be things that we would go tell our insurance company that, look, hey, the habitat risk is a great risk. You know, people love their organization. People don't want to sue Habitat if they get hurt. They've got all these things in place. You know, they don't let people under 16 do this. They don't let people under 18 do this. They don't let people, you know, get on ladders above this X, Y, or Z. So those would be like underwriting discussions that I would have more with the insurance company to try to negotiate the best coverage and the best prices for you. But I would rely more for those types of things you mentioned in all of the material. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? What are those things called that Habitat puts out? I mean, they have a whole bunch of different guides that, you know, talk about when, you know, looking for a partner family and,
Oh, yeah, it's all on My Habitat.
okay.
All of us have access to that, but that was kind of my question. Was that just our culture or was that actual policy?
Yeah, I work very closely with Habitat for Humanity International. I mean, I want to make sure that everything that they're saying, and they want to make sure everything that we're saying, that we're all on the same page and in agreement. Because if we have a disconnect somewhere, that's going to be a huge problem. And so they had already created many of those things. And so those are things that I used to try to help build our program and our policies. And so I would rely on them and those documents for those types of things. We do have some things like that out there, but they really have a lot of information.
Yeah, and all the stuff we have out there is from international. It's nothing we created. So we do have those youth advisory guidelines on the website.
Thank you.
And we have
Advisory guidelines.
and then we also have a copy of the template on the website as well for the waivers.
Okay, thank you. I know those questions always come up, of course, you know, when we're dealing with volunteers.
Yeah, but that's great because using that waiver template or one that maybe you guys had somebody in Oregon look at, it's great. I mean, again, those waivers aren't always going to hold up, but the better the waiver is, the better chance we have when there is a claim. Anything else? Well, if there's not, like I said, I'm going to be at a booth at the conference, you know, as an exhibitor, and I will be in a couple of different breakout sessions. But if you do have any questions, or if you get your renewal information this week and there's any questions about that, or you have questions about our website or where to find some of the information we've talked about, or just a question in general, please stop by and introduce yourself, say hi, and we can chat.
Yeah, or give us a call and one of us will assist you as well.
Thank you, Anthony.
Hey, thank you so much, you guys, for joining us today. This was something that we've been wanting to do for a while. We were even going to try to get our Restore people in on this, but it just kind of happened last minute. So don't be surprised if they want a repeat of this webinar here pretty soon.
Okay. Or tell them I'm actually going to be doing a Restore panel discussion at the conference too. So maybe they'll come to that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, well, thank you for setting this up. Thank you for inviting us. We appreciate everybody who attended. Hopefully others will maybe listen on the recording and maybe we'll see some of you next week.
Great.
Thank you both so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
It looks like we've already had a lot of people head out. So, I mean, we only have a few minutes left anyway, if we want to just go ahead and end a few minutes early.
Sounds good to me. I don't have anything else unless anybody has any questions or anything else they want to bring up.
You know what, John? You had school stolen. The same thing down here in Monterey, and it ended up being like just over $5,000. And so we didn't make the claim, but I went to a couple local lumber yards, and one of them ended up having all these old corded tools, and he's kind of like, he said, write down what you lost, and I wrote it down, and they ended up just donating the same that was lost. to us, but it was all corded.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of old Makita batteries that got stolen, but just a thought.
Yeah. You gotta love the donators and the people that, you know, give to Habitat. We've had so much theft, but one of the biggest ones, we had one of our build trailers actually stolen.
Oh,
But we had, it was replaced, all the tools were replaced and then some through donors. And just FYI, we found out, because we do some work with local unions, carpentry union, electrical union, and they've turned us on to a program through Milwaukee, where Milwaukee actually donates and does tool grants. And we're working to see what we can do with that. So that might be something to check into, you know, for you guys too, because we all love Milwaukee tools.
yeah.
But then, you know, we get site damage, broken windows, you know, our security fences, you know, so it's a constant thing. But knowing where that line is good to know, you know, so it's a constant battle.
Sure.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks, you guys. We'll
Thanks,
see you at
everybody.
the conference.
Sounds
good one.
good.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye. Goes on.